Okay, so I've got another guest here with me, and the point of these recordings is to show people that I'm not lying to them when we can quit. When I tell them that we can quit pornography pretty quickly. So, say hi, tell us how you're doing, so they know that you're here.
Hey, hi. I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be able to share my experiences with you guys and with Nelson. I just being able to have progressed and to have gotten to a place in my life right now where I'm at and porn free and uh, all the things that go along with that. Like I'm just astounded.
Yeah, awesome. So let's dive into some of the details because people want to know, like, how bad was your problem? Was it really that bad? And how fast did you fix it? And what was the hypnosis experience really like? How long has it been? And do you really feel like it's gone and all that kind of stuff? So first things first, like, how young were you when you got exposed, and how long were you dealing with this problem?
Yeah, so when I was first exposed, I would say I was exposed when I was around 8 or so years old, um, in that age range. And could you repeat the other question as well
Yeah, how
that
long
went
do
along with
you
that?
struggled with it? And do you remember how you were exposed in the beginning? I mean, I actually remember your story, but I want you to tell it how you were exposed in the beginning, how it kind of snuck its way in, and what the struggle started out like.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I was exposed when I was 8, and I uh, really it was just through a movie, honestly. Like it was just an animated movie, and it just had some girls in bikinis and just the that just really sparked my interest. And after that, I would kind of go back to it every like few months or so, like just and like whenever I would see something related to that, like I was like, oh, that's really interesting and enticing. But it wasn't until I like was 11 that I really was hooked, and I I I was going out of my way to look at pornography. I was in my addiction for about a decade, um, before I actually, came to Nelson and was able to get the hypnotherapy done.
Yeah. So during that decade, what happened? Like, what did you notice that the pornography habit was causing in your life?
Um, so during that decade, some things that I really noticed. So for the first few, I want to say like 3 or 4 years, I was really like I was discontent. I was anxious. I was extremely depressed, and I mean I had some family stuff going on, but like that was influencing that. But I was just from the pornography alone and the addiction, I was just so anxious and just on edge and paranoid all the time. And I was fighting as hard as I could to break that. I kept on telling myself, okay, I would set a day and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna stop this day. I was way too scared to go to my parents and to tell them and be like, hey, I've got this issue. I need some help. And that just I was so afraid of letting them know, and I was just afraid of that they would be extremely disappointed in me. But I was just like working my hardest. I was just using all my mental and physical power to be able to stay away, and I just couldn't. And I got after that 4 years, I ended up really like just the repeated um barrages of the just the desire and the wanting of, and just the lust and whatnot. I could not stay away. And finally it had compounded to the point where I just gave up, and I was like, this is who I am, and this is something that I'm going to live with and I'm going to keep in my life. And that progressed for a little while. I mean, I was still like kind of fighting it, but I was like a broken horse. I was just like, I'd given up. And um after about uh 2 or 3 years of that, I got even worse. I finally had gotten to the point where I wasn't even fighting anymore, and I wasn't even trying to resist the desire to watch pornography and to indulge in my habits. And that's when I kind of like just flatlined. And that's how I had spent the last 3 years of that addiction, was just flatlining, and I was just in the throes of my addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so tell me, at one point, I remember you saying that you tried a significant amount of prayer to fix this,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'd like you to just describe that a little bit, because a lot of people feel like God has given up on them, or I can't fix this with God and I don't want to go to somebody else. If I can't fix it with Jesus, then I can't fix it at all, kind of a thing. Tell me
yeah,
the thought process when you're going through this.
yeah. So during that time when I was really praying and uh, really just, I mean, this was after I had um, told my parents. That was about, I want to say 6 years, 5 to 6 years after I had begun my addiction and active pursuit of pornography. Um, but I would pray, and this went on for about 2 years. But I would pray for anywhere from an hour to 3 hours each night, and I did that for 2 years.
Hmm.
And um, the first few months that I did that, it was really good. It was uplifting, and I could share my thoughts with God. And then after about, yeah, like 4 months or so of that, I really started to change my mindset, and I would go into those prayers and I was like, God, you're not helping me. And I would for an hour to 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes, I would just be like, God, you're not here. You're not helping me. And I'm struggling. I need some help. And I felt like I was abandoned. And after I had gotten, like, after I'd done that for almost a year straight, I had gotten to the point where I hit that point where I kind of flatlined in my um, pornography experience. I just didn't resist pornography anymore.
Yeah.
When I was like praying, I would I was able to get down to like only indulging once a week. And um, I I eventually like couldn't maintain that schedule and that diligence. And I finally had gotten broken just with the prayers. Like I just felt like God was not answering them. And I mean, I don't know if you want me to share my experience now with prayer, but um, my experience now is, after having learned more about prayer and the and being able to pray like effectively and to really actually connect with God. It's changed the way that I really commune with God, and being able to share the burdens and being able to hear him whispering in my heart and in my mind has been so comforting, in my experience. I love where you mention it in your book, um, and it, it's exactly what I needed for prayer. Like I didn't know how to. I was operating on an old system of and way of prayer, kind of taught as a, as a primary kid and whatnot, like what they teach you in primary. And I hadn't really extended my understanding of prayer, and so that led to my ultimate kind of downfall and frustration with God. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. In fact, I know people want to hear about the hypnosis, and I like people to hear about that too, but this is actually, uh, it's a lot more important, in my opinion, for people to get
Mm-hmm.
the self-empowerment to know they can connect with the Lord, and Christ is the master healer. And I'm always going to defer to him as the best therapist. And I always
Yeah.
say hypnotherapy is kind of like a second best, but that's why in my book, I wrote out that. In fact, I would like you to just, if you have any thoughts that are surfacing about, like any specific principles that you feel like helped you make that breakthrough in prayer, because I would like people to hear these stories that I'm recording with a whole bunch of my clients, and ideally see maybe something that will fix their problem just by hearing what we're talking about, and not have to come in and see me, because I'm booked out. People are basically breaking down my door to try and come in, and I do want to see people, I do want to help people, but I think if they can figure it out in prayer on their own, that's the best. So are there any principles that really stick out to you as helpful in your prayer life?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just in your book, I I don't follow all of the principles to a T. I'm still working on that, but I always start my prayer as, "My Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy will be done, thy kingdom come. Father, lead me not into temptation this day, but guide me by thy spirit." And I always start my prayers like that. And I know that you outline it in your book and break down each line of um, those sentences and those phrases. And being able to talk with God and to actually give him that praise, and to be able to invite him in, and into my mind and into my heart through that way, has just been super powerful. Um, and then I love that, uh, I've been able to pray presently. As weird as that sounds, I used to pray like I was always in the past or in the future. I would always ask God. I would be like, "Hey, please bless me with all these blessings. Please help me to have a great day today. Please help me to have, to be able to, that my car will work, and I'll be able to fix the problem on it." And that's all great, but and then I also be like, "Hey, Heavenly Father, forgive me for these things that I did in the past, this thing that I did today," and that's totally great. And I feel like what really brought it all together was being able to sit down and have just this meditative state where you ask God, and you're like, "God, Heavenly Father, are you here right now?" And to just be able to listen and to hear the thoughts, that you have going on in your head, and you can hear him communing with you, and you can hear him say, I'm here. I'm here right now. What can I do for you? What what can I do for you, my son, or my daughter?" And um being able to pray presently, and to sit there in that meditative state, and just be like, "Hey, I'm struggling with these problems and I don't know what to do. And you can ask him, you can just be like, Heavenly Father, I'm I'm getting triggered right now. I am struggling with the the flesh of myself, and I am struggling to move forward and to keep my thoughts clear and concise and whatnot. What what do I need to do in order to overcome these feelings that I'm having, these emotions that I'm having, these thoughts and these desires? And I I just ever since having heard and learned that, I've it's just changed the whole dynamic of my prayers. And I've been able to connect with God, and I have been able to hear him and to listen to him and to be able to move forward. I actually like left the church I because of the way that I prayed, and I thought that I couldn't hear God and that God couldn't hear me and that he wasn't really there. And after having learned that principle, it has just made my prayers just so much more meaningful and powerful and just exciting. And yeah, I love that aspect of prayer, is just being able to pray presently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really awesome. And a lot of those principles that I share in the book, they're such abstract ideas. There's no way to figure it out until you practice it in prayer, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's in the practice that power really comes, but you got to sometimes approach it a little bit differently, different directions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you heard when I talked to you on the phone, and you were referred to me by somebody else, but when you heard about what I was claiming to do and helping people overcome this, and sometimes one session or 2 or 3 sessions, what were the first thoughts that were going through your mind about that claim that this is easy to fix, a porn problem?
Yeah. I honestly, my thoughts were like, there there's kind of no way. There's no way that it's as simple as hypnotherapy. That's where they've waved the clock in front of your face and everything, which it isn't, you know. But like I was kind of in just disbelief, and I was like, like I no way. Like I've struggled with this for almost a decade, for 10 years, and you're saying that it can be fixed with like in just a few hours. And yeah, I was just like, I'm in disbelief. But at that point in my life, like I said, I was like flatlined, and I was just I was like, whatever I can do, I'm willing to do, and I'm willing to go forward with. And yeah, I just was like, I can do this. So
Well, and I was
yeah.
really grateful for your passion, your excitement when you were coming in. There was a lot of hope there, and because I remember before you came in, that first call that I had with you, and you describing to me how it's like it was like it just took the devil just one little nudge each time he wanted to push you into it. It was just a little nudge, and that's all it took, and you were off to the races, watching pornography again, and how easy it was to just get stuck in that. So now,
Yeah.
I'd like you to just explain, if you can, in as much detail as you remember, what was the actual hypnosis experience like? Because people, they tell me, oh, this is mind control. I literally, like, here in my chair, I'm here in my office, I had a lady that has come in 3 times, and she believed that I was going to mind control her and potentially rape her. And so she brought her husband, And I was trying to explain to her, look, we can't do that. It's not mind control. This isn't some scary brainwashing stuff. Like the church wouldn't have approved this if they thought it was mind control, you know. And so in your experience, what did you think as far as the control that you had and the feelings, the sensations of being down in that trance state, so to speak? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, so I mean, my experience with hypnotherapy was interesting. Like I said, I thought Nelson was gonna wave the clock in front of my face, which it's not that kind of hypnotherapy, if that's even a hypnotherapy. But um, I came in and I sat down in that green chair, and um, I I was just super relaxed. And when we went into the session, I mean, the lights were off, and it was that really helped with uh, the therapy session, so that the light wasn't really distracting. But I remember being just having my eyes closed and just listening to Nelson talk and hearing you get me down into that trance. And I can't remember. I don't think there was any music going on. Yeah, there was no music going on at all. But I just listened to him just guide my thoughts. And I remember distinctly uh you telling me to make sure that I was looking up into the ceiling. And I remember you also telling me to breathe with my stomach. And that breathing habit was able to really get me down into that trance. When I was down in the trance, I feel like I had complete control. It like I'm pretty sure that Nelson's explained this, but it feels like you're kind of half awake, half asleep almost. And you're kind of in that like state before you really fall into unconscious sleep, or into deep sleep. And it it feels it's very non-invasive at all. It is, you just listen to him, and he just guides your thoughts along, and is really able to effectively like help you to heal. Um, are
So,
there
so
are
I'm
there any other?
Yeah, I'm just gonna butt in just right there for a second. So I don't want people to think that it's just like a guided meditation because you and I were talking the whole time, right?
Yeah,
Right. So I'm
and
I'm
that's something
talking
that
and
I
you kind of pay attention to the sound of my voice. And what you just described there seems like it could be a total paradox. You feel like you're totally in control, but you're kind of falling half asleep. And most people think if they're falling kind of asleep, then they're getting into this state where they're kind of losing control. And that's the phenomena of trance, is that actually we're getting the conscious mind out of the way so that when you fall asleep, and through hypnosis we keep your mind very alert, you actually get
yeah.
that analytical side out of the way so much that now you can finally see and think clearly about the deeper thoughts that you have. And at any
Mhm.
time, did you feel like you couldn't uh like have told me that you needed to get up and go to the bathroom or anything like that? Like you were in control, right?
I was in complete control. Like there, and thank you for kind of bringing me back back out of the weeds. But yeah, like if I needed to, like, say go to the bathroom, I could have been like, hey Nelson, can we put a pause on this, and can we come back to this? I need to hurry and go to the bathroom. Or like I could have been like, hey Nelson, I'm not feeling super comfortable. Can I come back another day and do this? And like I was in complete control. And it was honestly exactly what you just said, Nelson. It was we're just getting that conscious mind out of the way, and we're making, I can't remember what you just said. You're just making the consciousness a whole lot more alert, and your mind a whole lot more alert. and there was that aspect of you talking to me and me talking to you. Like it, I apologize for
No, no,
uh
no, you're good.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so you're good. So now I don't want to keep spending too much time on this, but because I want to keep this short for listeners to get all the kind of meat and stuff. But if
Yeah.
you could maybe summarize or explain, what do you think was the breakthrough that you made? What was the thing that you learned down in trance, or the click that happened, that subconscious was finally like, oh, that's it, that's what I needed, it's fixed?
Yeah. I remember being down in trance, and I hope it's all right if I share this, but I remember you identifying that spirit inside of me, and just the feelings of that lust, and being able to draw it out of my essence and my spirit and my being, and being able to really cast it out. Um, One of the major breakthroughs that I had while I was down in trance was that I can overcome anything that I'm struggling with, and I can overcome it with just the simple leverage of my mind. And um, hopefully I'm explaining this and
Mhm.
articulating this correctly. Uh, but yeah, just being able to really go back to that little kid inside of me. I I remember also you um, helping me to remember that little kid inside of me, and to really hold on to him and bring him back into my life after him after me losing him or letting go of him. And I feel like that was just a really powerful experience. It's kind of hard to describe, but yeah, like I had that major breakthrough of realizing that, you know, I can move forward, and I don't have to dwell on the past, and I don't have to be caught up in all of these things that I did to myself, and to anyone else that I may have hurt, just because of the me being unwilling to accept help and whatnot, and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. And you fixed it in one session, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I I tell people all the time, I'm like, yeah, and I love sharing with people that I was able to overcome something that I was imprisoned by, and I was completely trapped by. I had one session, and that was it.
Yeah. So since that session, because people are like, oh, it couldn't be that easy, and like, oh, probably had a lot of things that you had to do after that to stay on track and whatnot. So afterwards, I mean, how long has it been since we did that one session? Like
I
four
I can't
months,
remember
five?
off the yeah, I want to say it was back in like August or September or something, but it was like
Yeah, so
yeah,
six months maybe. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so it's been a while. So in these 6 months, you had a decade of really struggling with lust, easily just falling into it, just giving up, flatlining on there. That one session in these next 6 months, what was the thought process now about pornography? Like, were there moments that were coming in? And I want you to be totally honest here. moments that came in where you're like, oh man, this is a huge fight and I don't know if I can do this, and I better like practice a whole bunch of like journaling and trigger avoidance, and I better not go there, and where it felt like a real fight for you, like the urge was there and you really had to fight it off? Like, tell me, how were you thinking differently afterwards?
Yeah. Post hypnotherapy session, I was kind of like, is this going to work and whatnot? And I was like, I was like in disbelief again, but I started to go about my day and weeks and months, and I just noticed that like the desire was just it was just gone. Like it was like it was kind of like almost just blocked off for me. And my I didn't desire that anymore. I didn't desire to do those things anymore. And I mean I've had times where, I'll have thoughts that come in, and they are like, oh, this explicit imagery, and this, like nude woman or something like that. And I'm just like, that's not who I am. I am a son of God, and I am a child of God. And that's not something that I desire. I respect myself, and I respect uh, who I am. And frankly, the person that may have come into my mind, and that's not me. And I'm able to easily just pass it, just have it just bounce right back out of my thoughts. And
Yeah.
I've had times where, I've like had urges and whatnot, but I've been uh able to use the tools that I've been given by you, Nelson. Um, and I've been able to also use in conjunction with not only the tools, but you know, prayer, and being able to journal, and being able to read the scriptures. It's just I've been able to use those to effectively pass those times when I'm struggling, and the struggles are oftentimes not related to the addiction itself, or the desire for pornography. I'm oftentimes I'll catch myself feeling kind of just anxious, and because of an interaction that I had with someone, or just like, yeah, just oftentimes it's like interacting with people, and I get into a situation where I'm confronting someone, and being like, hey, I don't like it when you do this. And um that's when kind of like my anxiety gets up. But I, having been through that hypnotherapy session, I've grown so much more confident, and I can, yeah, just use those tools. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it
Yeah.
does. In fact, um, it's good because it clarifies for people that we're not removing the memory that you used to look at porn, or even some of the memory of the things that you looked at, or
Yeah.
the memory that you used to do that, or even just the temptation itself. Like, Satan still exists, right? Welcome to Earth life. He doesn't like to give up. And
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes those thoughts will come and we have urges and all that. But we want to make it so easy. It's like, you know, do you have like a, a, a compulsive stealing problem, or a compulsive like smoking problem? Like, no.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the same way that you think about stealing something that is cool at the store or smoking a cigarette should be how you're thinking about pornography now. It's like, oh yeah, I guess it's kind of a thing. I could do it. Some people do it. And maybe you get the thought, oh yeah, you could run off with this, or you could go smoke a cigarette or something. But it's like easy and it's stupid. And you just, like you said, you bounce it out, right? And
Yeah, exactly that.
and that's what we're establishing in the hypnosis session is that that thing that bounces it out. This isn't a band-aid. This isn't like masking the problem. We take the belief system and we find the lie, remove the lie, and then reinforce the belief system so strong that the temptation doesn't make its way in to mess with us.
Hmm.
And that's the key to everything we're doing in hypnosis. And you're a great example of how this has been working for you. So thanks for sharing all that. Is there any advice that you would give to anyone who would be hesitant coming in and doing the hypnotherapy to try and fix their porn problem?
Um, yeah, I just some like advice. I mean, I was at the point, I mean, like I said, it took me about 4 years until I was able to approach my parents and be able to tell them and just be like, hey, like I'm struggling with this. Like this is something that I've had for many years and I've borne without saying anything for many years. And when I finally confronted my parents, I mean, I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying. I was in just such a discontent place. And I I finally met with my dad and he he had nothing but love for me. He had nothing but compassion and just Christ-like love to help me overcome the 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 problem that I had. And if there's anything that I could say to anyone that's listening, Nelson is absolutely awesome. He is just absolutely amazing and super approachable about any of the things that you've struggled with, that you've seen, that you've done. And I want you to be open and just ready to fix the problem and just let him in. He like is just super awesome. And I don't want you to be afraid of him, like he said before, like mind control or nothing like that, because it's really not. And it's it's just you and him talking, you and him conversing, and your guys's consciousnesses connecting, and like he said, reinforcing that belief system. Don't be afraid to share with him anything that you might have on your mind at all. Yeah, I think that's about all the advice that I've got.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and you're back on track and feeling good and got a mission call and you're off to the mission here in a couple months, right?
Yeah, I sure am. I am it's just super excited for that mission. Like I said, I ended up leaving the church for a few years. And I mean, prayer was a big portion of that, but it was a lot of other factors. And having had a lot of experiences, and this experience with Nelson was one of those major experiences uh in my life where it just testified of the truthfulness of God and of Christ and of the gospel itself. And just being able to have people here that could just fix me and that could help me become who I'm supposed to become has just been amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for all the time that you spent in explaining this and helping listeners and potential customers and clients of mine and other people who are just wanting to fix this problem. And I just really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And hopefully I didn't like go way off into the weeds, but yeah, like I appreciate everything that you've done, Nelson. And yeah, like I'm super thankful, man.
Awesome.